Our next guest is Dr. Frederick Covington, and his book is called Gifted and Black, 365 Days of Black History. And he has a very interesting background. He's a lot of different skill sets that he operates under. He's an occupational therapist. That seems to be his main profession, but he's also an inventor, professor, and many other things. So, Dr. Covington, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much, and I'm very gracious for you all to have me on. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am, most definitely.
And congratulations on your new book, and it came out recently. So, do you have a copy of your book with you?
Yes, I do.
Show us the cover so people can.
Right with me.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. So, what made you write this book, Gifted and Black? What void did you feel was there that you needed to fill?
Well, what prompted me to write the book, or my motivations behind it, is so, of course, when we were in school, every Black History Month, we would kind of get the same old spiel from first grade to the 12th grade. They'll do MLK, Thurgood Marshall, maybe throw in Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks. And at the end of the month, somebody in the class would do the I Have a Dream speech. And that would be it for the entirety of the year. And so I lived through that, and as we all have, first through 12th grade. And then I watched my kids go through that. My oldest, who's now a sophomore in college, my 9th grader, my 7th grader, and my 4th grader, all the same thing.
I think that's, Gwen's back. I think that's a good thing too, that that you focus not just on people of the past, but people who are still making history now.
Yes, and I think that's something that young people need to see. Even when we look at historical films, when we see, say, Martin Luther King doing a speech or say something of that nature, and it's in black and white. However, there was full color back then. Some of these images are just put in black and white to make it seem like it was a long time ago. But in actuality, it wasn't. So yes, I think.
Can you all hear me and see me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you and see you.
Okay, I had a power surge. I lost power. I lost internet. I was hoping you all were still going.
Yes, ma'am. We're still going.
Yes, we kept it rolling.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure how to get back on. I'm sorry about that. I knew with thunderstorms, sometimes we get a surge and then, it goes off. So I missed some of the conversation, but I did hear some of the reasoning behind you doing the book. Can you open the book? And have you done that yet? I missed a little bit. Can you open the book just to let us see some of what your layout and how you organized it? So do you have it by time periods? Do you have it? It's not alphabetical because I see Burton and Wright together. So it's not alphabetical.
It's not alphabetical, and it contains individuals from the present, the past, and I wanted to have a mix of people to show young people that we're still making history. We're making history right now. We're just not. You just can't reflect on the things that we have done, but you have to reflect on things that we're presently doing.
This is true. I mean, I think a lot of times we discount what's happening right here and now because we're still celebrating what happened in the past. But there are people right here in our own time who are still making history. And so I guess that's one of the reasons why I asked, how did you choose people? But I was glad to hear that you chose people not just based on what happened in the past, but history makers who are happening in our own lifetimes.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to keep it diverse. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I saw too that have color inside.
Yes, actually, we publish different volumes of the book. We have a hardcover that's full color.
Okay.
We have a paperback that's full color. We also have a paperback that's black and white, because my hopes were to have schools be able to afford the book, to just put them in schools throughout the nation, because it's something that's really needed. We don't need to be, when I say we, I mean Black folk. We don't need to be just talked about during Black History Month. We're boundless. We can't be held by, the 28 days of February.
Right. Or 29 during leap year. We get
right.
Well,
that's why that was going to lead to the question I was going to ask. Was that your book was released in June? Was that purposeful that you didn't release in February?
Well, I've been working on this book for almost a year, because I wanted to take my time with it. And so I didn't want to release it in February, because that kind of goes with we're just noticed during Black History Month. I intentionally didn't want to release it during Black History Month.
Yes, but you did release it during the month of Juneteenth. So
yes, ma'am.
You're able to get some traction.
I did sneak that one in.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I did sneak that one in. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, you can't be mad at that.
Yes, yeah. Now, how did you go from occupational therapist to history writer? How did you? What led you in that direction?
Well, this is probably about I've written books prior to this one, but this one has a special place in my heart. I was saying, unfortunately, when you got cut off, we've seen just Black history just given to us within a month. And I watched my kids come through school, and they're getting the same spiel that we've gotten. And always ends, and I've seen this time and time again, it always ends with some student doing the I Have a Dream speech at the end of the month. So I wanted to get out of that bubble that they put Black history in. So that was the drive and the push for me.
Yeah, it's almost like Black history is frozen in concrete. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like you were saying, even when I was growing up, we were able to study different people. We didn't just have the handful of people, but it was driven by teachers who were really innovative and committed, and they didn't depend on the school, the school system. They did their own, we had our projects that we had to do. We had to do, I remember in 7th grade, we had to do a binder, those binders that have the little thumbtack, the folding tabs, where we had to collect information.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
We would go through Ebony and Jet, and those were very valuable resources. And I hate that they no longer exist, because that was living history at that time. And they would have history, they would have historical figures in different editions of the magazine, but also they had the people who were doing things at the time, So there was just lots of more information. But then at some point, it went to, like you were saying, I did hear that part where you said basically it's like 5 people, and it's the same 5 people every time.
Yeah.
And one of the points that you touched on, as far as when you were saying teachers were a little bit more innovative, and they kind of did that drive for us, or some teachers did. However, now I've been within the school system as an occupational therapist for 20 years now. And so now a lot of the times the teachers are given this set curriculum, and this is what you teach, this is when you teach it, this is how you teach it. And it's difficult for some teachers to divert from that. And so I think that kind of encapsulates Black history again and kind of closes us in and back into that bubble they put us in.
And
Yeah.
it's getting even more difficult now when we have governors who are trying to mandate what can be taught in schools, what cannot be taught in schools. And then they're trying to water down some of the history so certain children won't feel bad, even though often those children don't feel bad. It doesn't affect them like that. It's really affecting the parent more than it's affecting the child. But this is what we're going through right now. So unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, we need books like yours because less and less it's being taught in schools. And we're going to go back to how it was in the 80s and 90s, well, mostly the 80s, where we were learning about the same 5 people. And it's going to wind up going back to that if we don't have books like this that are teaching our kids more about their history.
Yes, and when you were speaking about how some politicians are kind of pulling away from history, my thought is about history is that history is history. History doesn't really care about your feelings.
Exactly.
History is
Right.
just that. History cares nothing about your feelings. It is what it is. It's something that's recorded. It's something that happened. You have to teach what happened. It doesn't matter if you get upset. History is history.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the context matters because if we're talking about things, for example, that happened 100 years ago, why would you feel bad about something that happened 100 years ago? And you weren't even there. That's something that people need to know about, but
Mm-hmm.
you weren't alive. So why are your feelings even involved? These are just facts. You
Yeah,
know? It's just, and you can't really move forward in the future. And
right.
you can't learn from the past if you don't know what transpired. And the past affects the present. It's all a continuum. And I say that often on this show. Our whole lives are on a continuum. We didn't just hatch. We're all part of what preceded us with our parents and grandparents and
Right.
their dreams and aspirations or their limitations.
Right.
All of that is part of it.
Yeah, yes. And I wanted the book to, really truly give readers, like I said, from fourth grade on up, to be able to explore Black history and look at our contributions, not only within the United States or some of the things that we've done that affect the United States, but some of the stuff that we've done to affect the world. We're world changers. And just give
We
somebody.
Yeah.
absolutely are world changers. And our history is not just in the United States. Our history, as you said, is all
Mhm.
over the world. So another reason why this book is so important, and because we need to know that we're not just a microcosm in America, and that we've affected change in so many other places. I've had the privilege of living overseas, and one of the things I do whenever I go to another country is I look for the Black history tours. I look for where the Black people are. It doesn't mean that that's the only place I want to be, but I want to know how we affected change in those countries, or how we
Right.
affected the culture in those countries. And I haven't been disappointed yet.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, my daughter just returned from Greece today, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
Okay.
And she went for 8 days. And she said one difference that she felt was that the Black people, where she went to Athens, um, Mykonos, and Santorini, she said Black people aren't like an object of anything over there. Like there's no history of us being there. So there's no history, there's no attitude there's no tension, there's no, everything is, so she said it's just totally relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And she enjoyed that. And I've heard that about Europe in general. I haven't been yet. My daughter got to go before me, but I've heard that about, and in fact, in the past, a lot of, well, Tina Turner left America, and I think she went to France or Switzerland or somewhere like that.
Yeah, she
To
did go
live.
overseas. Yeah.
Mhm. And there's not the same, there's not the history of the racial tension.
Oh,
So
well,
the relationship is different.
I'm not going to go as far as to say that there's no racial tension, because there is racial tension. For instance, in the Netherlands, the Black people there have been fighting against this character called Black Pete. And Black Pete is supposedly this elf who slid down the chimney, and the soot was so bad going down the chimney that his face was black when he came down. And so they called him Black Pete. And so they've been trying to fight against that hurtful caricature of Black people for a long time, because it's just like putting a white person in blackface. So
I
they've
guess
been
it depends on where you go, just like
right.
anything.
There are certain
Mhm.
countries, yeah, where racism is a little bit stronger than in other countries, but each country has their own racial strife in some way. It
Right.
just
And
may be
their
a
own
little bit
culture
different.
too.
Right.
Mhm. Like even in England, they had slavery, but it was abolished a lot sooner than it was here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and even when I guess that's another inspiration for me, just looking at the disparities that we face in the US, like you, and just associate that to overseas where we have a history of slavery in the States. And for me, growing up in the South in a very small town with about 2 or 3 traffic lights in the entire city, just looking at the power dynamics in that city, because growing up, one of the things that my mother used to say, that the town was kind of separated by, there was a large lake in the town. And on one side of the lake, you had us and say Native Americans, and then you had others, you had Caucasians, and we were kind of separated by the lake. And as children, we would just ride our bikes out, and the adults would always tell us, "Don't go past this street, past the lake. Don't ever go past that point." So having those roots also kind of motivated me to write this book. Um, and I guess coming up after I got over that bike riding phase and came up to about, I guess, 11th or 12th grade, I started to notice Spike Lee films. And I think he was a huge inspiration on me as far as Black history and kind of knowing yourself, because in the South at the time, we didn't get a lot of that stuff. And so him doing Malcolm X and School Days was excessively influential on me and I guess my train of thought now.
Mm-hmm.
Now you all are in the same neck of the woods, Rhonda. He's in Upper Marlboro.
Yeah, you live down the street from me too.
Yeah.
He's in Marlboro, and I'm in Silver Spring.
Oh, you're in Silver Spring.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
we're neighbors.
Nice.
Mhm. So where did you grow up? What state was it? What state did you grow up in?
South Carolina.
Okay, so it's a small town in South Carolina. What was the name of the town?
Bennettsville.
Bennettsville. Have I seen that? I've been through there.
Is that anywhere near Florence, South Carolina?
You know what? It's about maybe 45, 50 minutes away.
Oh, okay. My boyfriend is from Florence, South Carolina. I always kid him about being country.
Okay. And Florence to Bennettsville people, they're more so city folk. So
okay,
they're city folk to us. Imagine what we would be to you.
Wow. So wait. So Florence is considered the big city to you guys?
Yeah. See, Florence has a movie theater. We didn't have a movie theater where I live.
Wow.
Florence has a mall. We had no mall. They had like shopping centers. We had Food Lion, but that's about as big as we did. There was nothing in our particular town at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, wait till I tell him about this one. That is awesome.
I'm sure he will know. He would know Bennettsville. He would know Bennettsville.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, I've been to Charleston, What else have I been on? I went on a tour. It's very nice. I've been to one other city where I spent
Oh,
some time.
Charleston is beautiful.
Charleston is beautiful. A lot of history there.
Yes.
Yes, my last family vacation, we did a tour of Charleston and several sites in Charleston. You can learn about your history there. So that was a wonderful place to visit, historically speaking.
My daughter went to Clark Atlanta University and we were living in New Orleans, so we would have to drive through. I believe we have to drive through South Carolina to get to Atlanta. So we decided to veer off and go visit the Tuskegee Airmen monument. So there's the old field where they used to work, and we got to go to the airfield where they used to work, and they had a museum there, and it was really nice. We sat and just kind of toured the place for a little while and took some photos, and we enjoyed it. And then we drove over to maybe it wasn't South Carolina, maybe it was Alabama we went to, but we did go to the Tuskegee Airmen monument, and then we drove over to the nearby college. There was a college not too far from there, and so we drove there, and the founders were actually buried on the campus, and so we got to see their grave sites. I can't remember what school that was.
Yeah,
but,
you had to go through Alabama to get to Georgia.
That's what I'm saying. That wasn't South Carolina. That was in Alabama.
Because that's past. Yeah, because see, my daughter went to school in North Carolina, so we had to go from Texas. So I went through all those states multiple times.
Yeah, so it wasn't South Carolina. There is a Tuskegee Airmen monument in South Carolina as well, near Charleston. But I think where we went was actually in Alabama, not in South Carolina. I had to think. I had to talk that one through, and I was like, wait a minute, that wasn't South Carolina.
Yeah, but in Charleston, they have an amazing the buildings, the homes, like historical homes. They were preserved from like the 1700s. They're very well preserved historical community.
Yes, even in Charleston, you can visit the old slave markets. They still have that building where they would auction the slaves, and so all of that is still there.
Oh wow! I didn't go. They didn't do that part on the tour. That would have.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, I'm kind of glad that they are still there. There are still some.
We need to remember that.
That's what I'm saying. We need to remember. So I'm kind of glad they're still there. I got to see some of the concentration camps when I was in Europe. A lot of them still looked exactly like they did back in those days. And I think that's the only way that we can appreciate that history is when we can actually see the atrocities that people went through. So I'm kind of glad that they're still there.
Yeah.
Well, hold. We're at the end of it. 1 minute left. So hold up your book again, and I'm glad I was able to come back on. And that's a beautiful book. And
it is. I'm glad it's big. I mean, because I think you can really appreciate the pictures and the words inside. So I'm glad it's a bigger book.
Yes. So congratulations on that and your other work that you're doing. And thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV.
Again,
and we did
guys,
put your links in the chat. We put your links in the chat. So please, everybody, go and support these books. This is our history, and it's a great tool to teach our kids about their history as well. So thank you for what you're doing.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
And you do the same.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.